What's going on, everybody? Doc Average Gamer guys, back yet again. Some more Escape from Tarkov action, and today we are diving into the Hideout. I thought for Wipe 12.9, there's been a ton of updates to craftable items in the Hideout, and I thought it would be good to go by the different crafting centers and just talk about some of the best crafts to focus on if you're looking to do quest completion. And if you're on that grind to Kappa, we just picked up Kappa a couple of days ago, and I thought it'd be really helpful. The Hideout was absolutely a huge help in getting a lot of the tasks done, and I wanted to kind of just share what some of the recent updates have been, as well as some of just the kind of the standard, the old crafts that have been there that are going to be really beneficial for you. So that's what we're going to dive into today. By no means is this going to be like a full Hideout breakdown, but I do want to talk about the benefits of the crafts available to you as of this current moment. And it is changing very quickly and very often. So if you have anything else in the comments below, maybe that I missed, feel free to throw that down below. As always, just do appreciate all the support to the channel. If you end up enjoying the video, you find it helpful, by all means, throw a like, throw a comment down below. If you enjoy Escape from Tarkov content, be sure to subscribe. We got a lot coming up, a couple more guides. We've got a hardcore series playthrough that we're doing as well, which has been a ton of fun and getting quite a bit of support. So in addition to that, we got links in the description, Twitter, Twitch, Discord. If you want to come hang out with us live on Twitch sometime, pop into the Discord. We always post when we're going live. We stream Fridays and Saturdays, evening time EST. We'd love to have you over there, maybe run some raids, talk about EFT, or just hang out. It's a good time usually. So with all that, let's jump in. I will try to, in the comments, put a little sticky as far as the time, or do some chapters for when we're going to talk about each specific crafting area. So if there's one specific that you're looking for, you want to know a little bit more about the lavatory or the intel center, you can pop over there. We've got everything upgraded to level 3, obviously, on our main account, and I'll try to do that in the link below. So hopefully that'll help you. But let's jump into this. Here's how we're going to do it, and I probably should have started with that. We're going to talk basically one area by area, and I'm just going to run down again some of the good crafts, as well as what specific quests they align to. I'm going to follow a pretty standard path for each area. I'm going to talk about Prepare first, Therapist, Skier, Peacekeeper, Mechanic, and then Jaeger, and kind of go down the line that way. So we will jump around a little bit, but I'll talk about what you can get at level 2, level 1, and what's beneficial for you. So first things first, let's talk about the Lavatory a little bit. There's a lot of really good crafts in the Lavatory. Probably one of the best, in my opinion. One of the best, especially when it comes to space management. You're going to be able to make a lot of very valuable and useful crafts. You can make a lot of your containers, your ammo boxes, your mag boxes, not your ammo boxes, your mag boxes, excuse me, your grenade cases, your scav junk box. There's a lot of really good stuff here. In addition, they've really kind of pumped this up to be able to let you make some good textile type things first. So you can make, especially early on, you can make some scav backpacks, which are really useful. You can make quite a few other things, some black rocks. There's a lot to dive into here. So this is really good. Definitely recommend leveling this up pretty much as quickly as you can to open yourself up. But let's talk specific. There are a couple of key tasks that I think folks maybe struggle with a little bit, that really can be helped out by the Lavatory. So starting with Prepare, probably the first time you're really ever going to need to craft something for quest progress is going to be able to get these 60 round mags right here. So you need these for ice cream cones, which is a Prepare task. You need 3 of them, and you can craft these from the Lavatory at Lavatory level 2. The craft isn't bad. You need 4 standard mags. Kek tape can run a little bit expensive depending on how far you are in the wipe, but you can also make kek tape now, which is really beneficial. And finding the tapes usually isn't that hard. Clin can be a little bit more difficult, but if you really need the Clin, you can then craft that as well. So it really lets you step up. You can start prepping some of these things early. For instance, if you find some vodka or find some shampoo in some early raids, hang on to them to make some Clin, and then from that point you can move forward, craft your kek tape, and then when you get to that task, ice cream cones with Prepare, you're ready to go. You can craft these up. So 3 of those AK mags, that'll get you ice cream cones, Prepare, and again, that's level 2 for Lavatory. In addition, Peacekeeper, Spot Tour Part 3, Peacekeeper task. You know, kind of at the start of Spot Tour, you need quite a bit of stuff. You need these. You need the 40 millimeter or 100 millimeter milliliter. I can't say wow milliliter. 100 milliliter WD-40s, so you can craft those there. You need some Clin. So we talked about that. So that's a good one to craft. Corrugated hose is probably one of the biggest things just for all hideout craft upgrades that you're going to need. So again, Lavatory coming in huge here. You need it for water collector and just a ton of stuff. Actually, Lavatory itself, which is interesting. So you can make corrugated hose here, but you're going to actually need to turn some found in raid ones as well. In addition to that, you're going to need bleach, which I think I saw somewhere around here. You only need 2. You're going to be able to make 5. Pretty easy craft. But that one will basically get you, Lavatory could basically finish off Spot Tour Part 3 for Peacekeeper for you. And all that stuff is craftable at level 2. In addition, Supplier with Skier, it's a pretty early task, but they have added that you can actually make the Module 3M body armor. So now you don't even have to get lucky enough to find this in a scav or on Factory. There's a couple of custom spawn spots for this as well. Now you just need some Ripstop, I believe, and some Aramid. And you can craft that 49 minutes and you're rolling, and that's again at level 2 Lavatory. And then Textile, there's a ton. Textile isn't a Kappa required task, but a lot of folks like to get it done. Usually opens up some pretty cool clothes for you, and you can make a ton of stuff out of the textiles now. Take some bags, you can make some, what is this, some cordura, you can use some P.E.K.K.A armor and turn them in some Aramid. Again, you can use some of the fleece beanie caps and make some fleece here. So you basically can craft just about everything you need. Probably the biggest one is Cordura. So they've got a couple of crafts for that because you need quite a few of them. But yeah, Textile 1 and 2 for Ragman. You can do that basically between level 1 and 2. You get some of the textile stuff opened up right away once you first craft the Lavatory. And once you level it up to level 2, you should have everything you need to know. So that's a quick rundown of Lavatory, and let's jump over to the Workbench. So Workbench, again, all of these have their specific purposes. Workbench is great if you want to be crafting top tier ammo. And in most cases, I won't say in all cases, but in most cases, crafting the ammo from this is generally going to be cheaper than buying the rounds on the flea market itself. So that's kind of the big push. In addition, you need Workbench level 1 in order to mod your guns. So that should be a big push, especially if you're starting out. But after that, you do get some really, really beneficial crafts from this. So starting with Therapists, 4 car batteries. This is probably one that most people will do. Car batteries are just pretty difficult to find. And while it is very expensive, you can basically take a military battery plus your special tool here, and you can craft 5 of these. You need a ton of car batteries as well for your vents upgrades and a couple of other hideout upgrades. So this is a very popular one to get. Now, car repair is a Kappa required quest, but it doesn't open or lead into anything else. So you can definitely take your time to try to find the car batteries. But this is just a very simple, very easy one to be able to do. And right at the outset, go on the flea market, get to level 10, buy this, craft these, turn them in, or use the 5 to upgrade your hideout. Really, really beneficial. So that's a good one. And you can do that at level 2 for the Workbench. Lend-Lease Part 2. Lend-Lease Part 2 for Peacekeeper. While nothing specific to that quest you can make in here, one of the biggest upgrades that they did and most recent changes to the Workbench, if I can find it, is going to be the MCB right here, Military Circuit Board, which is pretty easily findable on Reserve. You can find them in a lot of locations, but Reserve is obviously a very heavily contested map for both PMCs, Bluehar, as well as player scavs. So sometimes it can be difficult, but the reason I highlight this for Lend-Lease Part 2 is MCBs are really big in being able to craft the Vertex and the Coftums that you need. So this is a good craft to be able to do. Probably won't actually save you any money if you have to craft these, depending on where you are in the wipe. These are usually relatively cheap, 45 to 60K. They can jump up, especially at the beginning, but for level 2, if you have this stuff and you need to start crafting these, kind of prepping for Lend-Lease Part 2, this is a good one to be able to do. Signal Part 2, which is a mechanic task. Again, level 1 and level 2 of the Workbench are going to open up a couple of these, but it's going to give you the option to be able to make the rechargeable batteries, which is really nice. So that one with the power bank. I personally wouldn't do this and just try to find the rechargeable batteries in filing cabinets and such, because the power banks are actually pretty expensive, I'll say relatively rare. Definitely rarer than the rechargeable batteries, but if you need them, that's a great way to do it. You need 3 rechargeable batteries for that. In addition, you need printed circuit boards. They give you a couple of options for these, which is really nice, because you need printed circuit boards for a lot of stuff, hideout upgrades and such. You also need 3 for Signal Part 2. So level 1, I think, opens up the printed circuit board for Workbench, and level 2, I believe, opens up rechargeable battery. And then farming Part 2, for mechanic, you can basically make everything off of level 1 Workbench, and that includes power cords, T-shaped plugs, again, your printed circuit boards. So again, you can find a lot of these things, but if you're not interested in trying to do that, or you're just having trouble maybe finding the last 1 or 2 to finish up these quests, again, T-plugs, power cords, you can make a lot of really useful stuff out of Workbench and help you finish up again, farming Part 2 for mechanic. And then fertilizers in addition for mechanic, another great one. That's 5 wires and 5 capacitors, which you're going to be able to very easily make from this as well. Printed circuit board, again, DVDs pretty common with the small flat screwdriver, so that's going to be an easy one. I really like the Workbench, probably one of the better craftable things. It goes without saying, you could also make OFZs for Prapor. I didn't really cover this. I strongly recommend not doing this craft. It's really not worth it, especially just having to use the line. But if you're really struggling to find these OFZs, they did add them. You can make them. OFZs do turn into a lot of things, so that's pretty cool. But Workbench definitely got a big buff recently. Again, you can, with drills, you can make some of the motors. Motors are really big for your hideout upgrades. Magnets are used in a lot of different things. Hideout upgrade, if you have trouble finding Nixers, this is a great craft to be able to get your security leveled up. So there's just a lot of really good stuff in the Workbench, in addition to gunpowders, which you can see a lot of top tier ammos to craft at level 3. So definitely push working on getting your Workbench leveled up. You will not regret it. So let's jump over to Intel Center. Not a lot to cover here. And everything that you need in this, you have to have Intel Center level 2. Level 1 is going to reduce your scav timer. I think it actually gives you a little bit of a boost for your reward money, insurance return time, but level 2 is the key here. And then level 3 opens up some of the top, really top tier crafts. But there's a couple that recent buffs to loot, specifically putting flash drives in safes, has been really big. So you shouldn't have too much of a hard time finding flash drives. Jaeger and a couple of other quests actually give you a lot of flash drives to be able to turn in with found in raid status. But if you are struggling, that's kind of the first 2 that you're probably going to come across. So you can make some flash drives off of SSDs, the GPX, and a broken G phone. You can make 3 of them, which is pretty good. It is a long craft. All these are really long crafts. But what's on the flash drive for Skier? That's a Skier task pretty early. And then Shady Business with Jaeger. Both of them open up relatively early inside the quest. You need 5 total flash drives between those 2 quests. So you're going to be able to craft them here, which is really nice. We talked about Lend-Lease Part 2 with Peacekeeper. That's for the Coftums, these signal transmitters, and the Vertex programmable processor. So you can actually craft both of these. I believe you need 2 Coftums and 1 Vertex. I could have that mixed up back and forth. I'll flash it up on the screen so you'll have seen it. But again, I talked about being able to make the MCBs over in the Workbench. You can then take the MCBs, a couple of other items, honestly pretty easily findable, usually relatively cheap. Maybe except the power bank can be a little expensive on the flea, but very easy to turn into these 2 items, which can be very hard to find. Vertex Coftums you can find relatively often at Reserve. There are quite a few spots inside of labs to be able to find these. Vertex, arguably a lot harder. I had to craft mine. You can find these in labs and a couple other locations, but great crafts to be able to do. And again, Workbench is going to let you craft those MCBs to be able to get into them. So that's a good thing to be able to do. Farming Part 4 with Mechanic, if you're familiar, you need to turn in a couple of GPUs, a couple of graphics cards, 3 of them to be exact, and if you're having trouble finding them, or you just find them, maybe can't get them out of the raids, specifically like your interchange runs, like a lot of people struggle to do, you can craft these. So keep that in mind. That will help you with that. And then import for mechanic as well. Mechanic is really centered around the intel center. You're going to find a lot of the traders are kind of focused to one of these areas as well, just with what they ask you to do. Mechanic seems to be kind of lined up to the intel center. But import with him, you need 1 RFID and you need 1 VPX, which both of these can be crafted. RFID they made really cheap, really easy, which is really nice. This is a very hard thing to find. I've only ever found these on labs personally. There's probably a couple other locations, I'm sure. VPX is a little bit easier to find, but same thing. Labs specific, you can find these, and then I believe that they'll spawn in a couple of the other locations. But again, import for mechanic, easy crafts here to be able to get done. And that kind of wraps up Intel Center. Intel Center is a really good one. Obviously, you can make Intel out of it, which you can use for your scav junk box. So it's a really good one. I do craft, and I'll start after this video, start crafting another GPU. I like to be able to craft that stuff. Pretty simple, pretty easy. It's going to save you some money. It is long crafts, though, as you can see. But there's some really good ones that they've added to this Violet keycard, which is very, very expensive, but if you're having trouble finding one or don't want to pay for it, that's a great option to be able to get it. So let's jump over to the Medstation. This is going to be really lined up for a lot of therapist tasks, so that's where we're going to start. Shortage, probably one of the first things you'll ever need to craft is Salewas. Now, they've recently been modifying this. They didn't used to have to take these tourniquets, so it kind of is what it is. But definitely Salewa's 30 minutes. Probably a lot of you will craft these instead of having to find them. For Shortage, one of her first tasks, or I think her actual first task, is to find 3 Salewas. So level 1 on the Medstation, you're going to be able to craft them 30 minutes, hour and 30 total, and boom, you've got all 3 to turn that in. Painkiller is going to be another one that opens up pretty soon for therapists in her quest line, which is 4 morphines. Morphines you can find pretty regularly, especially all over customs, but if you're having trouble, a syringe, a meds, and a painkiller, and bam, you got yourself a morphine. You need 4 of them for that. In addition, you also need 4 morphine for a Spa Tour Part 7 with Peacekeeper. So I highlight that in case you just don't pick these up or have trouble finding them in raid for whatever reason, or just don't like grabbing them. They sell usually pretty well. I think around 10k to the traders themselves. So usually worthwhile picking up, but if you're just missing them, you can craft them pretty easily for both Therapist and Peacekeeper. That craft, again, this one specific for the morphines is level 2 of your Medstation there. Private Clinic, level 3. They added the ability to get the LEDX. This is a very expensive craft. You can see you need RFIDs, you need the power banks, you need ophthalmoscopes. A lot of this stuff, you need the defibs, all of this stuff, quite expensive, with the exception of the magnets you can make over in your workbench there pretty easily. This is a great craft if you have a really hard time or don't want to contest the areas to get it. Interchange obviously has some spawns. Probably the biggest, easiest place to find this is going to be on Shoreline and the resort, and then obviously there are lab spawns for this as well, but getting out with one of these can be very difficult. So you do find yourself at a very expensive craft. You can craft this to get turned in. Now, Private Clinic, probably the best quest to be able to turn in, because you're going to get yourself your thick items case, which is just fantastic. You still will need to find the ophthalmoscopes for that quest, but arguably those are a lot easier to find than the LEDX is. So you've got the craft there. This, you have to have Medstation level 3, which can be a little bit of a grind. So make sure you're focused on that if you're looking at getting that turned in. Vitamins Part 2 for Skier. This is a level 2 craft. You can now make the blood sets. Pretty simple, pretty easy. You're going to get quite a few syringes off the rip, so you just got to find yourself some of this silicone tube. You're going to need 3 blood sets for him. And then really the last 2 I'll cover is samples. This is a Peacekeeper task. Not really required for much, but you can. They did add that you can actually make a mule now. Mule stimulator, which is pretty cool. Very usable stim outside of being able to turn it in. It's one of the few requirements for that samples task, but if you're having a hard time finding these in raid, you can at least make one, which is pretty nice. And then finally, The defib. So you can craft yourself a couple of defibs, relatively cheap, I would say. Again, especially probably minus the power bank here. You can craft a couple of defibs in prep for the LEDX, but the biggest thing you're going to be able to do here is craft this defib for ambulance, which is a Jaeger task. You can craft these defibs starting at Medstation level 2. So that's going to be really beneficial for you to be able to help turn that quest in, and it's a pretty good craft. You can use defibs for a lot. So this is one that if I have it, if I find the stuff in raid, pretty often I'm crafting these just to have them. You can trade them with therapists for quite a bit of stuff, and again, prep yourself into a LEDX if you're kind of down that route. And that really kind of covers Medstation. Is just really good overall. I find a lot of success making some money off of Medstation. I like to take craft these the SJ1s here to then craft into SJ6s to be able to sell. You can make Propitol, which is arguably one of the better stims in the game, just from a combat perspective. So you get yourself quite a bit of good options, as well as just making some standard meds. If you're having trouble maybe finding Vaseline, you can make those. Hemostats, I'd probably just buy these, but if you find this stuff and you just don't want to do anything with the meds, good crafts to be able to make out of this, and all relatively short. Obviously, with the exception of the LEDX and the defib, everything else is relatively quick, usually less or right around or just over an hour. So Medstation, pretty good. The last one we'll jump into, nutrition unit. Not a lot to do here. Nutrition unit, the buffs to this for the hideout is probably really where a lot of people will focus on leveling this up. You can see you get a really high energy, health, and hydration regeneration rate, which is really good. Post raid, you get killed, or you run a really long raid and you don't want to spend the money to eat or drink, this is really where that bonus is going to come in. But you can do a couple of crafts that are going to be beneficial for you. Probably the one that you will most certainly do if you, again, are trying to go for that quest completion is going to be general wares for therapists, which is to turn in 15 cans of beef stew. They finally added to therapists the ability to swap out Amelia with rye croutons, which then allows you to craft these. That was a great change. Rye croutons were really hard to come by early this wipe until they added that. So this is nice. You're going to be able to find these food or buy these off the fleet, again, relatively cheap, and then start crafting these. You need 15, which is why I'd say at some point you're probably going to craft some of these. You can do that starting at level 1 for nutrition unit, which is really nice. So if you know that, start grabbing these early, start crafting these, and then just hanging on to them to be able to turn that in. If you struggle with finding cigarettes, specifically Wilstons, you can craft all 5 that you need for Bad Habit with Mechanic. You can do this at Nutrition Unit level 2, and one quick craft, an hour and 33 minutes later, you at least got a portion of that task done. You obviously still have to turn in the other cigarettes, so you got to go out and find those, but at least these seem to be, the Wilson seem to be probably the most rare of the cigarettes. So that's a great craft to be able to do off of really easy. The tea is usually pretty cheap. Same thing with Apollo cigarettes. They're really cheap. So that's a great craft to be able to do. Acquaintance, which is one of Jaeger's, like, his first or second tasks, is going to be able to find 3 Iskra lunchboxes. Now, this has 2 purposes. I like to cover this one. You can make these Iskra lunchboxes at level 1 of the nutrition unit, so you don't have to level this up very far to get some good value out of it. But these they're not necessarily hard to find in raid, but a lot of times if you find them, you might want to use them to level up your metabolism. You need to be able to find 3 of these in raid or crafted, obviously, to be able to turn in for his acquaintance quest, which includes a couple other, you need the Amelia Rye croutons. But with some squash, again, if you get lucky enough to find some cans of beef stew and some crackers, you can actually craft these, which is really good. In addition to acquaintance with Jaeger, Survivalist Path Thrifty requires you to place 2 of these at Woods. 2 different locations, ZB14, ZB16. So if you don't want to go, these run usually on the flea 15 to 17k, especially, kind of early in the wipe. They're going to be a little bit more expensive. Right now they're probably right around that 15k mark. If you don't want to pay for them and you have some of this, you can actually craft those 2 that you need for that Survivalist Path task, and pretty good. Other than that, those really are the ones that to kind of focus on as far as crafting. There's some good stuff to be able to make in here. I always do this craft at least once for the Aquamaris, just so that I always have hydration outside of raid. And the super water can be pretty expensive. purified water can be pretty expensive. But the tube, really easy. You get 8 of these. These are absolutely fantastic for replenishing your hydration as well as getting you some energy back. So I like that craft. You can do a lot with whiskey. Obviously, sugar you can use to then, with the water, you can make moonshine if you have your booze generator going, which I do right here. So I use Nutrition Unit quite a bit just for some of the different things in here. If you want to go ahead and save up condensed milk for that trade, you can do that as well. Make some other good stuff. Hot rods end up turning into BS ammo, which is pretty nice. That's an expensive craft, but you get 20 of them. The kvass is actually pretty good, great hydration. So you can do a lot with Nutrition Unit, but level 1 and level 2 is really where you need to get, and the big focus here is for the bonuses. So that really covers what I wanted to cover in this video. Hopefully it was really helpful for you. I do apologize if it was a little bit longer, but I wanted to go in some detail. I know I didn't cover every single craft or exactly what each specific thing does inside the hideout, but again, really wanted to focus on the crafts specifically related to questing and helping your quest progress. So hopefully you found that. If you did, again, do appreciate likes, any comments you have down below, or questions. I am a big fan of rushing the hideout basically as fast as I can at the start of the wipe. I try to rush the hideout in addition to completing quests at the same time. Focus on picking up those hideout upgrade items, those barter items that you need, and then just start setting yourself up. We just did the hardcore episode where I was basically able to turn in like 3 or 4 therapist tasks right in a row, one after the other, just because I had some of that stuff set aside. Obviously, a lot of it found in raid. Hadn't really crafted anything, but if you set yourself up, especially for some of these later on tasks that I covered with the respective traders, you're going to find that while it does take some space and some space management, you're going to get to certain tasks and you're going to be able to turn them in right away, and then your space opens up huge. The rewards for a lot of these are really, really good. And obviously, if you're pushing for Kappa, the faster you can get through some of the silly like farming tasks that you just need a lot of stuff for, you can do a lot of that inside of your hideout with relatively minimal expense, minus maybe picking some stuff up on the flea market. So use that to your advantage. Again, hopefully you found this helpful, and we'll have some more guides coming out here pretty soon, but wanted to cover crafts. And this is constantly changing. That's been a big focus for BSG, for Nikita. They've been modifying these crafts. So even if you're watching this now, this is up to date as of wipe 12.9. If you're watching this even a couple of weeks from now, what I'm showing on screen, the crafts might be a little bit different in your hideout. So please just keep that in mind. If there's anything specific that's added that I need to update in this video, I'll try to remember and throw a comment down below and pin it. So be sure to check the comments as well. But with that, we'll close it out. I've been Doc, Average Gamer Guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. Look forward to catching on a stream, maybe sometime soon, as well as in the next video. If you want to check any of that stuff out, links in the description below. With that, we'll close out. Thanks for watching. Catch you next one. Peace.